The outpost trembled as another plasma burst struck the shield generators. Arden Cole wiped the grease from his hands, his knuckles raw and bleeding from 12 straight hours of emergency repairs. The frontier station orbited a dying star, and tonight it seemed determined to take everyone with it. "Mechanic Cole, we need power to Medbay 3 immediately." The comm crackled in his ear, but Arden was already running. Medbay 3 was in the abandoned wing, the section they'd sealed off after the Dragonborn delegation had been attacked by separatist raiders 3 cycles ago. The Dragonborn. Proud warriors from the scorched sector. Reptilian giants who stood 9 feet tall with scales that could deflect small arms fire. They had come seeking an alliance with humanity, but the extremists had made sure that meeting ended in blood and fire. Arden punched through the emergency seal, his breath fogging in the frigid corridor. Emergency lights flickered, casting dancing shadows on walls scarred by weapons fire. The acrid smell of burned circuitry and something else, something organic and suffering, filled his nostrils. He found Medbay 3 in ruins. Shattered medical pods leaked cryogenic fluid across the floor, freezing into crystalline patterns. Medical equipment sparked and died. And there, in the corner, beneath a collapsed support beam, lay the small form. At first, Arden thought it was just debris. Then it moved. A dragonborn cub, no larger than a human child, lay pinned beneath wreckage. Its scales, which should have shimmered with adolescent iridescence, were dull and gray. One wing, vestigial at this age, was bent at an unnatural angle. The creature's breathing came in shallow, rattling gasps that filled Arden with a primal dread. "Jesus Christ," Arden whispered, dropping to his knees beside the cub. This must have been Sarath, the delegation leader's offspring, the one they'd reported missing after the attack. The cub's eyes cracked open. Brilliant gold, even in the dimness, and focused on Arden with an awareness that shouldn't exist in something so young, something so close to death. In the Dragonborn culture, cubs were sacred. They matured slowly, taking decades to reach adolescence, and each birth was celebrated across entire star systems. This cub was dying, and Arden was just a mechanic. The young Dragonborn made a sound, not quite a whimper, not quite a growl. It was the sound of someone who had already accepted their fate, who had spent days waiting for death in the cold and dark. Arden's jaw tightened. "Not today," he said, and began to work. The beam was titanium-reinforced steel, designed to withstand micrometeorite impacts. It would take a crane to lift it properly. Arden didn't have a crane. He had a portable plasma cutter, a hydraulic jack from his repair kit, and the stubborn human refusal to accept the impossible. He cut through supports, wedged the jack beneath the beam, and pumped until his arms screamed. The beam shifted 3 inches. The cub whimpered. Arden pumped harder. "Come on, you stubborn piece of shit," he growled at the jack, at the beam, at the universe itself. "Move!" The beam lifted 6 inches, 9, 12. Enough. Arden dropped the jack and pulled the cub free. Sarath was surprisingly light, hollow-boned like Earth's ancient pterosaurs. But those bones were crushed. That wing was shattered, and the cub's core temperature had dropped to dangerous levels. The medical equipment was dead. The doors were sealed. The outpost was dying. Arden made a decision that would have gotten him court-martialed if anyone with authority had been present to stop him. He tore open his thermal jacket and pulled the freezing cub against his chest, wrapping them both in the insulated material. Dragonborn body chemistry was wildly different from human, but thermodynamics was universal. Heat was heat. Sarath stiffened against him, instinct fighting reason. Dragonborn didn't trust easily, especially not humans they didn't know. But cold was winning, and the cub's struggles quickly weakened. "I know," Arden murmured, starting the long walk back to the operational sections. "I know I'm not your parent. I know you don't know me, but I'm not letting you die in this frozen hell. Your people came here for peace. They trusted us. I'm not going to be the reason that trust was misplaced." The cub's breathing steadied slightly against his chest. Arden kept talking, kept walking, kept moving, even as his own body screamed in protest. He talked about Earth, about the machines he fixed, about the time he'd accidentally reversed the polarity on a fusion coupling and blown out 3 decks of the station. He talked because the silence was too much like death. It took 2 hours to reach the operational medical bay. By the time he stumbled through the doors, Sarath's scales had begun to warm, their color returning to a faint bronze shimmer. The medical team descended immediately, scanners and instruments and controlled chaos. A Dragonborn healer, one of the survivors from the delegation, pushed through the crowd. His scales were battle-scarred, his eyes ancient and knowing. He looked at the cub, then at Arden, then back at the cub. "You carried him," the healer said. "It wasn't a question." "Couldn't leave him there," Arden replied, swaying on his feet. The healer reached out with one massive clawed hand and placed it on Arden's shoulder. The gesture was gentle, reverent. In our culture, the one who saves a cub's life becomes Kishara, spirit bonded. "You are now family, human. Sarath will remember. We will all remember." Arden wanted to say it was nothing, that he'd just done what anyone would do. But he looked at the gathered Dragonborn, saw the way they watched him with newfound respect, and realized that wasn't true. Not everyone would have run into a frozen wing. Not everyone would have shared their warmth with an alien child. Not everyone would have refused to let death win. That was the thing about humans, he thought, as exhaustion finally claimed him. They were stubborn, reckless, and absolutely terrible at accepting the inevitable. Sometimes that made all the difference. Sarath survived. The cub would carry scars, a twisted wing, scales that never quite regained their full luster, but he survived. And on that dying station, orbiting a dying star, a mechanic with bleeding knuckles and a heart too big for common sense had taught the Dragonborn something they would never forget. Humanity didn't just build machines. They built bridges. They built hope. And when they found something worth saving, they would burn the universe down before they let it die. That was the miracle, not in the rescue itself, but in the fact that a human mechanic, facing impossible odds in a frozen hell, had looked at a dying alien child and said the most human thing possible. "Not today."